Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Marcus Weisgerber. I write for Defense One. I'm the business editor there, and I cover the intersection of business and national security. Excited to be here this morning for this discussion. I just returned from the Reagan National Defense Forum in California, where the subject of AI, machine learning, and similar technical aspects were among the subjects we discussed throughout the weekend. So I look forward to this discussion. We have a great panel here, and one of the things I like to do is throw out a big overarching question to each of our panelists to kind of get the discussion going. We're going to talk for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to throw it over to you in the audience to ask some questions. One thing I want to remind everyone is there's a survey apparently on your table. Please fill that out. Our events people would love to get that back. So anyway, the broad question for everyone, and this, I guess, should really get us going. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing the AI workforce right now? And we won't start with Joel. We'll let him drink some coffee.
Educational material.
I'm happy to start.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
I would say, at least from my perspective, it's probably confusion. It is literally confusion of what it is, what it's not, how it's different from all of the other things that you're hearing about, whether it's data science, high performance computing, quantum, you name it, any of those things, and how these things all fit together, and what are people's roles with it. So being that, this is being described as the fourth industrial revolution, this is a little more beyond just, plugging and playing new technologies into infrastructure. This is, what does that mean for jobs like policy people, HR, developers, data scientists, all across the board. It's taking a holistic look of what those mean. And so I don't think we're quite there yet. And I'm not even sure, and we talked about this earlier when we were prepping for this, was that there's even a common definition of AI right now.
So I would absolutely agree with everything Kathleen said here. Just maybe a few additional comments. AI, in particular, this forum, right, we're thinking often about national security and use of AI. There's a lot of people very excited about getting into AI. Students are very excited. There's a lot of students very interested in cybersecurity. We don't see enough people yet that want to do the nexus of that. And I think that having skills in both of those is going to be critical to use AI in national security. That's one thing. The other thing is that, as Kathleen said, nobody knows exactly what AI is, right? There's many, many things that go under the label of AI. And I think for hiring departments, it's going to be very important to understand the different types of AI, the different types of technologies, the level of training or education you would need to be effective doing that, but also to know, and this is beyond just building the workforce, but for companies to know when it is good to use AI. I think AI is really good for some things, and it's overhyped for other things at the moment. Maybe things in 10, 20 years will be different. And I think that the worst thing for AI would be to oversell it, and then it would get a bad name in certain ways, right? Well, it's very useful for other things. And I think higher management probably still needs to be educated a little bit too on exactly where these strengths currently lie.
Yeah, and I'd say to kind of piggyback on that, one of the other challenges is identifying within the organization where AI is best suited to start with. Where's the bottom of the learning curve that you can get the most amount of return, that as you're starting to deploy AI into a new framework or a new issue, where is the ability for you to isolate things that can be easily tested, easily done, and then scaled over time. And with most of the topics and issues, they're incredibly complex. So starting somewhere where you have measurable outcomes that you can track an AI against to see how it's producing a new result or a result that a human wouldn't have been able to do, allows humans to build that trust with the machine. And I really like how Ben kind of laid it out as, it's like this robot that's sitting alongside you that's trying to help and assist you. There's a certain trust that you don't just, gain overnight that I'm going to put all of my eggs in this basket or think that this thing's going to solve every issue known to man. But there is an evolutionary period of going from a purely human-based data thought process, internal exclusively, to now I'm going to have a machine assist me with a lot of the deep data mining aspect side of it. So isolating within a community or isolating within an organization, where is a good entrance point to start with employees in your workforce is a challenge.
Joel.
Thank you. Yeah, I think AI is coming whether we want it to or not. So it's going to be the AI haves and the AI have-nots. And the one way to kind of increase the number of people that are understand it is the educational aspect of it, the workforce training, and how many more people can we bring in to understand what's going on with AI, all the different levels of it, whether it's autonomous or robotics or whatever, the data mining aspect of it. Trying to create the people that understand the processes behind it, it'll be an important point in bringing this forward.
All right, so we're going to talk and unpack a lot of this. We're going to talk about building of that workforce. We're going to talk about some STEM initiatives early on, but just in terms of just the workforce right now, where I guess are the biggest holes that you're seeing, or where are AI professionals really desired, probably, or lacking?
I can start. I would say the unglamorous parts. So it's data engineering. So there is a lot of that. So being able to have all the infrastructure, have tagged data, have it in a usable format where you can access it. These are all critical things, and we don't have nearly enough of those, because a lot of where people start and they start learning some of those skills, but then they want to move towards some of the very, very advanced. There are, and that is not to diminish from data engineering, there are very advanced portions of that. It just tends to be the unsung hero, the parts where people are not as excited about yet. And so being able to do that, you actually have to have that really strong infrastructure to be able to do true AI. So that would be where I would start. The other part is, I'll just concur with what you actually said earlier, it's hybrids. It's hybrids of people who can take what these things are and put it into context. So being able to be a data scientist or somebody who's writing a machine learning algorithm, but if you don't have context of the domain and what that data means and the understanding, it won't be as good.
Somebody else want to comment?
So to take another angle on this, besides the hybrids, if you look at national security context again, a lot of companies need people who are skilled in AI and something, and also have a clearance. And if I look, for instance, at the national labs who are hiring pretty advanced AI workforce, they're not able to hold on to them. And I'm guessing this is true for a lot of government agencies. They cannot compete with what corporate America is going to pay. And so a Google recruiter glowingly told me that they purposely wait for about 5 years after a federal agency has fully trained up somebody and has their clearance, and then they hire them away and they'll just pay them double the salary. And so I think the mindset in government has to be, you're probably never going to compete, salary-wise. What if you plan on having somebody for 5 years? How can you build a workforce where maybe you even work with companies to say, hey, let's make a deal here. We will train them, leave them here for 5 years, they'll move on. It's a completely different model, but it's starting to be debated. And I think creative solutions like that are going to be necessary, at least for the foreseeable future, until we have a lot more people with this kind of background.
Brian, maybe building on, go ahead.
And so to go on the point of the hybrid, I think one thing that NG has done really well with over the last number of years is building a lifelong learning workforce. The workforce is just continuously picking up new skills, new traits, whether that's internal, external, through our National Geospatial Intelligence College, through all sorts of different resources. What we always want our workforce to be aware of is, yes, we say AI is coming into the future and it's going to deliver all these great things, but it's also not really going to leave you behind. We're looking at using AI to really enable our workforce to do much greater things. We're not looking to use it to replace our current capabilities. We're looking to enhance our current capabilities and to really build a new next generation analyst that has all the skills that the previous generation had, but is also now enhanced with the new generation's technology.
I think to kind of build on what Kathleen said as well, the fact that the workforce is concentrating in some of these major companies like Google, like Amazon, I think that's a downfall. That's a problem. That will be a problem. I think building the systems engineering aspect of it is important because you've got the domain experts building their AI tools. And I think that's an important part in making ethical AI tools. because there's no question that a person who doesn't know anything about a subject matter expertise or an area of expertise, right, they may build AI tools that are not ethical, that may do the wrong thing, and that's why having diverse workforce, having more people, having people with different backgrounds, building the AI tools will help make sure that those tools are ethical and are doing what they're meant to do.
How about let's unpack the competing against commercial companies. I know just right here in Washington now, a lot of the talk is about Amazon coming in and how that's going to impact not only the government and the defense industry writ large. So I've talked to some CEOs about this. Former SAIC CEO I remember was telling me about looking at moving jobs elsewhere in the country to other areas where the cost of living, say, is a lot less. Talk about how I guess you guys are competing against them, and I guess incentives may be the wrong word to use, but how you're helping lure that talent and keep that talent, and then perhaps if that talent leaves, get them back maybe at some point down the road. Kathleen, you want to start?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I work for Booz Allen, so it's a large consulting company. So our model's a little bit different. We have the ability to help convince people to stay by moving them through different parts of our clients. So supporting, so whether it's in national security, the civil side, or defense. That comes with location areas that can change. So we've had a number of people who've moved out of the national security realm and decided they wanted, for example, one of my best data scientists decided he wanted to live in Tennessee. That's where his family was from. Mm-hmm. So he is still very, very active and productive, but he is working remotely. So we're able to do that, and that has helped quite a bit. And then the other part is just truly supporting mission. So that's where some of the big commercial companies are not that they're not supporting mission in specific ways, but being able to be ingrained in it and get to see it firsthand and work with those types of data sets. So, I mean, I know I went in at one point and we had a presentation to our CEO, and this was a number of years ago, of who we were losing getting data scientists to. And I told him that week we had lost to like Smuckers or something like that. And he couldn't believe like how, a top tier consulting company is now losing to, a jelly company. And so what we had to do is start thinking about it and explaining it in a different way. They have a lot of data. And that's what, data scientists and people who are creating algorithms are driven to. So this is a new world. This is not quite the same things where you're having your traditional competitors and things that you're looking at.
Brian, how about you from a government aspect?
Yeah, I was going to add, I think, obviously we have a huge draw because of the amount of data and volume and the challenging mission sets that we work. And a lot of that, I say if you want to, what's the lasting legacy or what's the lasting footprint that you want to leave on the world? And there's plenty of companies out there that you can go and you can, create the next ad to push it to a cell phone and see if somebody buys your shoes or not. But on the, national intelligence security side, there's many amazing missions around the world that you impact when you come and work within the federal government. And what we see is a lot of our workforce, it's not that I think we want everybody in our workforce to be successful. If they leave government and they go out to the private industry and they decide years later to come back and bring those new skills back in, I think, just like any other organization, it's only made up of the people and the teamwork. So the better people you can attract with the missions and the challenges that you have, the better the workforce that you can build. Obviously with this forum, the technology is a key piece. So enabling people to experiment and build new things and resources is a huge aspect that the federal government has that many smaller organizations don't. So an ability for somebody to come in and really fine tune their skills and learn on a lot of different technology is a huge advantage to our workforce. So yes, it does make them extremely marketable and skilled to go out somewhere else. But what I think overwhelmingly what we see is a lot of them decide to stay. A lot of them decide to stay for a variety of different reasons. And the federal government's very flexible with the workforce and where we allow people to work and rotate and move around the world. So there's many aspects to that. But personal choices where people decide to move to other areas or for other reasons, we see that on a regular basis. But that's almost ingrained with our teamwork. We're going to see them again in the future at some point.
Is there anything you guys want to add?
So it's interesting, right? From academia, that's a little bit different. Right. But there is actually, I think, a way that it connects everybody here, because we see a big brain drain in academia for AI and data science. there's entire departments where all the AI specialists have been hired away by companies offering double, triple salaries. That is going to affect the workforce that everybody here is trying to hire. And so what does academia do? Well, we can't afford that kind of salary. We do offer very interesting work, and certainly we typically can't do remote work because of the nature of our operation, but we are often in smaller cities, so there's sometimes people coming back, but overall it's definitely a negative thing. But I think it's, I guess here, an outcry to everyone here, having companies and government invest in universities to support these programs, offer endowed professorships that get the best and brightest back into academia to design the next generation of AI that you will all then use, and the students who learn about it, who you will hire, I think is really important. So I think partnerships between government, corporations, and academia is the key here.
I think in addition to that, tightening up the mentorships between staff and younger staff coming in is important to kind of create that tie between the older and younger staff. I think to a large degree, and I see that at Lincoln Lab, I see that at MIT, I see that across DoD, other DoD agencies I've worked with, that the mission is important, right? Is the mission important to those people? They're the people that are going to stay. They're the people that are going to build the AI tools and really advance what the needs are for your department.
So let's talk about making sure you have the talent available to you down the road. So I know a lot of what we're hearing. I just at the Reagan Forum was moderating a panel about nuclear weapons modernization, and the administrator of the National Nuclear Security Administration was on my panel, and she was talking about one, having to hire all these new nuclear engineers, and two, all the ones she has are about to retire. So talk about like how maybe some STEM initiatives and just kind of how and what needs to be done better to reach essentially kids in school at the young age, the junior high age, and I think to the high school I went to on Long Island where I grew up, they've since put in this giant science center and invested millions and millions of dollars into this. And as the son of a public school teacher, I know that every public school everywhere does not have the resources to do something like that. So perhaps let's talk a little bit about STEM initiatives and what else needs to be done. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Joe.
I'll start this one. I think in public schools in particular, there aren't a lot of STEM initiatives, and there are very few. Now I'll caveat that a little bit. There are very few computer science, very few AI-related STEM initiatives, right? There are a lot of STEM initiatives where kids are building things, they're building first robotics leagues, but I think the curriculum just does not exist at the AI level. And in fact, if we can get the AI curriculum down to middle school level, right, or even elementary school with programs like Scratch, that becomes a tool where the students are starting to think computational thinking, they're starting to do design thinking, and they're starting to think logically about how to build code. And once they learn how to build code, then it doesn't matter what language they're learning. They can start to pick up anything and then start to put the pieces together. I think whether you talk about public high schools, charter schools, high-tech high, P-tech schools, all of them have advantages or disadvantages to what they can put in. The fact that there isn't curriculum and we're trying to develop curriculum is an important thing, and how to do that and how to get that advanced is kind of a large stone to lift up. And but more schools are picking it up as what they call enrichment programs on Saturdays, inter-schools, and things like that. The enrichment programs is because they don't fit in the current public school curriculum. So they have an after-school program. We're seeing kids actually start up robotics clubs where they're learning to code after school. And so the kids want to learn it, right? And we just have to be able to provide them the infrastructure. There's programs like AI for All. There's Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code. And then the program we're running out of MIT are all important steps in that direction to provide that curriculum, provide a mechanism for the kids to start learning on their own even, so.
So I'd say here, those are absolutely essential things. The only thing I guess I would add is for what can you all do here to help, Computer science still is a mostly white male operation. A lot of departments fighting with this, trying to get diversity up. Some good successes there, but still a long way to go. I've done some outreach, third grade, fourth grade. Around third grade, not too many problems there. You get to fifth, sixth grade already, cultural norms are setting in. And so I think incentivizing your workforce to show, to have role models that go out to talk about the cool stuff they do with whether it's AI, computer science, cyber, so that people can see themselves in those roles would be something that would help us educators so that the students actually want to receive this education.
So this is actually one that's near and dear to my heart, and actually one that I've been working on for the last probably like 5 months or so, especially associated with curriculum. So full disclosure, I have 2 elementary school children. So I have a 4th grader and a 5th grader, a boy and a girl. And I'd like to see both of them doing these things. So a lot of their classes, a lot of their things right now are after school. So trying to get it in. So we're actually working with a nonprofit, and we're trying to influence and figure out what is going to be the curriculum. So for between K through 12, we're also doing for some other programs and things like that as well. But the reason that, why is a big company like Booz Allen doing it? Yeah, are we thinking that far ahead in terms of our future workforce? Probably. But it's more about right now of raising the overall foundational understanding and knowledge and skills across the board. So what's in it for us? We want to do really cool things with AI. And until we get the foundational level across the board up, those things may not be possible. So we are really looking at it and wanting to be able to do that. We're also looking at some programs, and we've already run them and did pilots of them, of hiring for aptitude. We've done where we can hire all different types of people who have different types of skills and see if we can actually train them in these types of skills that we're looking for. It's been an experience, it's been a ride. We're doing it of reskilling it for our own internal people as well. So the K through 12 area we think is vital because they're ripe for it. A lot of them, and then for those of you who don't have kids, how they learn has actually changed pretty drastically. My son has almost no textbooks. So for those of you in this room, I mean, how many people had textbooks? Good portion. So he watches like YouTube videos. He watches like YouTube videos for school, and then they create a Google Classroom doc of, aka in my world, a briefing. They create that and they turn those in. So that's easier now for us to be able to do like a little bit of lecture series type things, whether it comes out of academia or corporate or government of, hey, this is what this concept means, or these types of things. We all have a role to play here, and we can help.
Yeah, and to kind of build on that too, NJ has always been focused on the communities that we are a part of, and a lot of the outreach we've done, for a long time now at the middle school and high school levels, bringing geospatial information into their classrooms to teach them about different tools and different things that we do as an agency to get them excited about the future. I see AI as kind of the next piece on top of that, as far as, well, maybe we're not making maps or working or editing geospatial data anymore, but maybe we're teaching more coding on another level. I also think kind of fundamentally, we value a lot of language skills at the middle school level, teaching Spanish, teaching French, teaching. If somebody says, I speak 6 or 7 different languages, we value that a lot in America. Where if a coder says, I speak 7 different languages, it's kind of lost in the medium there. We don't value that as much. So in the realm of how are we going to evolve this younger generation, placing the importance on their ability to not only learn and adapt and solve problems, but then also build the tools on their own to solve those for the world is an important piece.
In terms of policy changes, I guess, or whatever you would need, or I guess the efforts you have to reach students lower. You said lower at lower levels of schooling. As you mentioned, a lot of stuff is after school. It's not in the curriculum. Are there any major outreach efforts going on within state? States, does it have to be at the state level, federal level, both?
I can take parts of that. So some parts of the research I've done lately associated with this, because we're working on some of these things, is reaching the teachers. So reaching the teacher is the one who actually teaching it. So how do we get their buy-in? How do we work with their curriculum groups in terms of getting it into the curriculum, but also being able to train them? So, just the same programs and things that we have for our staff, is there a way to get teachers into those? So, having them have that base understanding, especially in the AI realm where there's a lot of fear. So as much as we don't think the robots are coming, we still kind of do. So, getting and bringing down that fear factor associated with it and having an understanding. So things like in history, where you're talking about the Industrial Revolutions, is this the next portion that you talk about? Whether it's coding or computer science or those in higher level in like high school courses and things like that. But where else would it fit? It doesn't just fit in those two. What would be other areas where it would fit too? And having an ethics discussion. So, a lot of children who are learning to code and doing a whole bunch of great things, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. So how are they learning those types of ethical parameters and boundaries that should be asked?
I think there's a lot of workforce training, just as Kathleen said, that can be used to teach the teachers. I think the kids are pretty fearless when it comes to picking up and doing project-based approaches, but the teachers are sometimes reluctant because sometimes they don't want to be upshown by the teachers. But this is a chance using this workforce training to bring teachers in, educators, to help them out as a way to give them the confidence to be able to say, we can run this course, let's see what the kids can do with it. So, yeah.
So say I'm in college right now. I want to get a job in AI. What, Kathleen, maybe start with you. Like, what are some things Booz Allen's looking for?
Well, I guess it just depends, what are your base skills right now? So, if you don't have some level of coding, I'd say get it to have at least an appreciation and understanding. Not everyone has to be a hardcore coder, especially a lot of the gateway barriers of entry. So some of the base things we tell people are like Python. Python, you don't have to be a mathematician, but you have to have some computational understanding, statistics, being able to understand, again, is it statistically relevant or not? And then applying it with that in domain expertise. So some aspects of learning problem solving. So there is a very core element of critical thinking, of the difference between, hey, I'm just going to build this to a set of requirements versus I'm going to use these same skills to solve a problem. And so having those types of, and that's where I think we were all trying to get to different aspects of hybrid, being able to solve the problems, those are, at least for me and my team, what I tend to hire.
Brian, how about from a government aspect? What types of specialties or skills is the government looking for?
So along with the coding aspect, the critical thinking is really important. Once you start to develop new coding skills and you understand libraries and you can start to build things, your ability to solve those is kind of a different problem. When you're building an AI to do something, there's many different ways to do it. It's not that any given one is wrong or right. It's just that some of them may produce a better outcome than another. So having strong critical thinking skills on problem solving. A lot of the backgrounds, you don't have to be a mathematician. Obviously, it helps if you're strong in math and you're strong in stats. A lot of the current stuff is pretty complex. So being able to take a very maybe an out-of-the-box solution and apply that against a whole series of different problems is quite difficult to do in a lot of cases. So being able to adapt and improve and take a issue that maybe needs to be broken down into many, many more pieces, and utilizing the correct tools or modifying those tools to get to your end state really requires a lot of strong thought.
So from a education point of view, I think some of the ways that curriculum need to address these things is by, in addition to your standard lecture-based covering the basics of AI, a lot of experiential learning where people have to do real-world projects where they apply their skills so they get to exercise these critical skills before they go out into the workforce.
As at Lincoln Laboratory, because we're so close to education at MIT, right? We hire people that are passionate about solving problems. Because if you're passionate about solving a problem, you're going to be able to work through the hurdles and work through the problem sets to be able to get to the answer. And so that's one of the things we look for, because we know that we have resources to help educate the staff. So we're looking for people that are passionate about problem solving, right? I mean, as you touched about a little bit, experiential learning, project-based learning is so key to building the skill sets to be able to solve problems and work out these issues.
Yeah, sure.
One other thing, in addition to what would be considered traditional data scientists, AI engineers, all of those, we're actually very heavy into, so I lead a group of this AI strategy and training group as well. So of bringing people who have traditional strategy backgrounds with deep technical understanding, because we are encountering a lot with this wave and this kind of revolution of, I'd want AI. And our first question is, to do what? So there's kind of this cart and horse problem in terms of being able to, and as much as I'd like to find all of those things in one person, I would say everybody has some different unique skills, and especially their background and their things. It's how are we taking a team-based approach? Because finding those unicorns, we're not going to be able to afford them. No one's going to be able to afford them, of being able to say that you can diagnose a problem, you can build all the tools and apps and algorithms that would be needed, as well as have all of the domain understanding. That's a really hard thing. So I would just say, for the most part, we really look at the team approach of how do you pull these things together and the different types of skills that you need and when you need them.
We talked about hiring, I know, a little bit on our prep call, and then Daniel and I actually were just over before we started. We're talking about not just hiring an AI professional, but using AI to hire folks, and some of the maybe challenges involving that. How I guess is the human resources workforce being trained to seek out, I guess, the right types of professionals?
So that is definitely one that is, I would say, a work in progress, because you've all heard all the different news stories and things like that of what's being eliminated. I'd say one of the big areas that we're focusing on right now is AI bias risk mitigation tools. Mm-hmm. So what do those look like? What are they? How can we make sure that we at least have an understanding of what the decisions that are being made? So you've heard a lot about explainable AI. So the idea that the rise of being able to trust what the AI is telling us. So there was kind of a weird juxtaposition that happened for a while, where people were asking, how did the AI make the decision? And the people who were the AI engineers were like, well, I can't really tell you. And so, because it's the black box. And so other side was getting annoyed, being like, no, you should tell me. I got to make a decision. I need to know what were the parameters. And the other ones were like, it's not that I just can't tell you, because that's not how it works. So there's a whole school of thought right now, and a series of very deep research of how do you actually make AI that you can explain and have it explain the audit trail of how it made the decisions. That's actually a lot harder than the other way. So going into that part, where then you have some basis of understanding for bias. Humans inherently have bias. So it's more about understanding what decisions that you're making, where you understand the pedigree of the data, the pedigree of the people who are made the algorithm, all of those things, those matter. And so that's where it's leading to, and that's where I was alluding to earlier. Training needs to be for our HR people as well, not just our data scientists and AI people.
And I'll jump in on our conversation there. So you were talking about AIs, and our sponsors here were talking about the idea of AI as a helper rather than a replacement. I think this is a good example where that absolutely is going to have to be the case. AI is really good at analyzing a lot of data and coming up with red flags and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But that final decision better, for the time being, be made by a human being who can take a much broader overview of what's going on. I specialize in adversarial AI, and it's really easy to mislead AI. And so if I want my resume, even though I'm completely unsuitable for a job, to go to top, and I can study that AI, I can figure out how to do that. And that's, of course, not something you'd want. But I think AI is really good in saying, hey, here's some red flags, you should look at this. So as a tool, as helping the human in HR, great tool. But don't over-rely on it. And that's the main risk that needs to be mitigated, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea behind companion AI, right? You AI as a way to augment what people are doing, right? Because you can't afford to have your subject matter expert sitting next to the HR person, 8 hours a day reviewing resumes while you're doing the hiring. You've got to have a way to be able to augment what those person are doing, so that the person is always that backup check. There's always a human checking that until you've got that trust. And at some point in the future, where you can understand what's going on with explainable AI, and that's a very good point, so that the decisions can be traceable. There's traceable decisions.
One of the things we talked about was the national labs during our prep call earlier in the week. I think, Daniel, it was you who were talking about that. Can you talk about some of the challenges they're having and some of the work that's being done to maybe mitigate?
In the particular
In the
context
labs,
of hiring people in AI?
Yes.
So the main thing we talked about a bit earlier, which is that they've got amazing, interesting work. And so if mission is the call, as was mentioned here, they do a great job. But so one of the keys to their problem is that up till, say, 20 years ago, it was very standard. You go work for a national lab, you go work for IBM, a place like that. You're going to make your career there, right? And in the last 10, 20 years, this whole compact has changed. Companies are not going to hold on to you necessarily. And your loyalty to the company, therefore, also is greatly diminished. And so I see a lot of my students now who go there with, well, yeah, I'll do a couple years there, and then I'll go find something better, and I'll just move around. And so if you're in a market with highly marketable skills like AI, that's actually pretty easy now to do. And these agencies have to think very differently about it. They used to just assume once you start here, you're here, and that's it. We don't have to do too much on retention. And now they really have to work hard on that. So I think that together with the salary gap is going to be their main thing. Again, mission definitely is one of the ways to combat that. But I also think they're just going to have to realize that it's the new reality. And so make plans where you assume they won't be here for their careers. They'll come, maybe they'll leave, and then maybe after 10 years in industry and they're a bit burnt out and they want a good work-life balance, they'll come back again. And if you're very open to that and you plan on that, you can probably manage this problem.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I was going to say one of the things that we kind of focus on is people who are highly skilled and technical in the AI sphere. They tend to like challenges. They tend to like constant challenges, tend to like new projects, new ways of thinking. They tend to like touching new technology, testing new things out. And I think that's one thing that we do well is we stimulate our experts with new challenging problems all the time, new people to work with, developing new teams, building new projects. And I think that's a huge area because they're continually learning, continually growing as an individual within the organization. You don't get that staleness. You don't get I've been working on this project for a while and I don't know what the next steps are. There's always future roadmaps, future missions, and the ability to keep things fresh and keep people always active and engaged is something that I think really helps us retain our workforce.
One thing I know we talked about at length on the call was kind of the reskilling of the workforce and the employees that you already have. Maybe Brian, kick us off a little bit of government. Large civil service, I guess. What's being done to reskill folks?
Yeah, and as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier on the learning for life. Basically, our workforce has been very adaptive. I think within the federal workforce, you tend to retain people a little bit longer than the private industry. But we've tried to build a culture of people are always learning new things. People are always adapting, always taking on new jobs, new missions, taking back what they learned back into their previous mission space. It's very much if you don't have the skill today, that's fine. Let's figure out a training roadmap to get you there. If you're interested in learning about AI, then let's set you up with the courses and the people, and let's get you going on that road. We're never leaving anybody behind. We're never saying your skills were, from your degree that you had, 20 years ago is no longer relevant today. I think it's really important that if you speak with a data scientist, their view of the world is very, very different than a history major. history major who has years and years of experience dealing in the intelligence space, has an enormous amount of institutional knowledge. And that's not always reflected in the data. So if you're just training an AI to learn on your data and make recommendations in that, and you're not taking that human piece into consideration where all of the value, all of the insight that they can offer into it, then you're missing out. So our model has always been to allow enormous amounts of opportunities for our workforce to grow and to evolve with us, because we're constantly changing as an agency and constantly growing our technology.
So this is something we've been doing for a while. So probably about 3-4 years ago, we established what we call our Data Science 5K. So this was a foundational data science course with the hopes of putting 5,000 people through it of our own employees. So we had a very heavy, analyst core throughout Booz Allen, serving across the federal government, a lot in the intel community. So how are we going to reskill these into, so take people who had very heavy critical thinking skills to more in the computational. So we learned a ton by doing this. First, of developing the curriculum, because there wasn't one. There's no standard definition of a data scientist at that time. So what were our definitions of what a core skills would be? Then we also have, it's expanded into, so it's our full analytics university, because there is no one size fits all. And so then we really started looking at, and we do this with our clients as well, is kind of what are the personas that an organization needs? Is it, data engineers, or is it we need all high-end machine learning engineers? Because finding what that mix is, and then finding out what kind of their path and their journey would be from a training perspective, because they're not all the same. You don't need everybody to be at this high of a level, because quite frankly, if you don't have the work for them, they're going to leave. So then you just train them for nothing. So we've been doing this and looking at that of the wholesale, how do you combine in just training with actually organizational goals, strategy, all of that. We've done it both internally and then having an understanding of where you're at wholesale. Then you design what are those kind of journey maps for each of the individual personas as they go along. So we've done that. And then we also had to look at, in terms of, there's no one size fits all. People have lives, right? Like an intensive boot camp, can you actually devote time after your work hours to go through an intensive boot camp? Or are we going to do it during work hours? So there is also lower barriers of entry where we did a lot of partnerships with outside companies that have maybe some online learning that you can do, shorter snippets, micro-learning type of things, micro-degrees. So we've been kind of crossing the gamut of the different styles, whether it's virtual, in person, and we've learned quite a bit. But I think the best lesson I can say and close with would be is make sure you kind of understand for what purpose. So what is the end of just that training? What are you trying to get them to be?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And I think if you look at academia, so in addition to the boot camps that companies offer, if you're looking for just a little bit more, maybe like a graduate certificate in AI or cyber is the right thing. But if you do decide you need somebody with that advanced machine learning perspective, algorithm design, you need to realize that you're not going to get that with that, and you're going to need people who go through the entire programs because there's a lot of moving parts at that point. And so I think, figuring out exactly which of those routes is appropriate, because that last thing is not for everyone, and it's going to take a lot of time, so a big investment, but then also, big impact.
To be fair, we do sponsor through for PhDs as well, because that's a very valid point. You do need to have some.
Yep, absolutely.
So you must track assessments as you go through this as well, right? So that's an important aspect to find out what's effective, what's not effective. Have you thought about partnering with a high school and bringing the Booz Allen curriculum to a school?
So we are.
Okay.
We're going through some
Right.
other aspects through a nonprofit to do it kind of the right way, where it's not so biased on our parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other thing I'd kind of add on top of all that is the flexibility of how your workforce learns is extremely important. People learn, and especially advanced concepts, advanced things, people learn very, very differently. So somebody may be very good at taking an online course because they can pause a video and Google search some topics or some things that they maybe don't have the background in, compared to somebody who is going to do an on-prem site training with a professor who is going through advanced topics that, if it's a 2-week course but they're lost in the first day, then the rest of the time and the resources is wasted. So it's important that as you're evolving the workforce, you're looking at, well, how do they learn best? What are the techniques we can best use our resources, and really make sure that you have an adaptive model so that everybody can be successful.
All right, so we have just about 15 minutes left. I wanted to turn some of the conversation over to the audience. So I think we have some microphones. And so does anybody have any questions? I see one in the back.
All right.
I was just about to leave, and I was thankful I got a chance to ask a question. First off, I would like to go back to, I believe it's Brian's comment about the government workforce. I can't disagree strongly enough with what you've said about, and I can speak for the Department of Defense to some extent, about our ability to develop agile, adaptive, forward-looking people. And our friends from Booz Allen Hamilton know this. And help us a lot with this. I know you won't comment on that, but you might want to comment on that. But I'd like to just, if I can have 1 second, to have you all talk about the closer in and higher level aspects of artificial intelligence, because a lot of artificial intelligence, of course, is learning what questions to ask, and the critical thinking skill of asking what we want out of artificial intelligence. And I believe our friend from MIT mentioned design theory. The intersection of design theory and artificial intelligence is one of those places where, for national security in particular, we can really use some help, and be interested in any thoughts you might have on that.
And can you just introduce yourself real quick?
My name is George Topic. I work at National Defense University. I work for the Office of the Secretary of Defense and the Joint Staff.
Thank you. Who wants to take?
I guess I'll take it right off the bat. So I'd say that the federal government's a big place, and every agency is a little bit different. And I think that every agency, there's not a one-size-fits-all for these solutions. Every workforce is slightly different. Every mission is slightly different. And the real kind of cornerstone in all of this is, how well do you understand your organization? How well can you build plans to evolve them? And teamwork, that was mentioned several times in here, is a huge component. Team learning, making sure that your employees have roadmaps, developmental plans in the future to make them more successful in the spaces that you need future support. Overall, the strategies that are taken by the federal government and Department of Defense are broad, and we have very high hopes for, or I say high standards for a lot of our work. So it makes it a challenge on the federal side for not only the recruitment aspects, but also the integration side. But what I think we've seen over the last several years has been an acceleration on a lot of different fronts, an acceleration of understanding, acceleration in the data science realm, an acceleration in our technology investments. And I think it makes it an exciting place for future people to join the team and future work for the nation.
So I was going to... It's such a broad question, actually. We could have a whole hour topic on it. But one of the things I see is Auburn University, where I'm a professor, is working a lot with Huntsville, and we've got a huge DoD presence there. And so what I see is increasingly people there who want advanced degrees in cyber, AI, national security, that kind of combination. But they can't just take off a couple of years to go and get their PhD. And so what we're doing is a lot of, they have undergraduate, sometimes even master's degrees, but we basically set up custom programs for them so they can do their PhD on a topic that their agency wants. So we'll work with, say, Space and Missile Defense Command, who wants some cool AI for some classified project. And then we get professors with clearances who will work with them so they can get their PhD on the project that directly benefits the agency. And I think that's been very successful. Now, the biggest challenge I see there is scalability. You can do that with small numbers of people. You couldn't easily do that with very large numbers. But then, as Kathleen made a point earlier, you don't need that many people typically for PhD. You need some to be the technology leaders. And so I think there may be enough, or we can get to the point where we can scale enough to at least do that. So I think that's one way that we can help DoD. Does that answer your question at all?
We're really sort of interested in the senior leaders and managers that make the executive decisions on resourcing and investments. That we do not, and how do you develop them? Because the hole in the middle that you guys talked about from people leaving after 5 years, makes it, where are we going to get the senior leaders from?
So I can give from the consulting perspective, both internal to Booz Allen as well as what we've been doing across the federal government in some places. So I'm happy to share with anyone afterwards. Essentially, what we've been doing is focusing on a course for the middle. And so more of like a executive workshop, the middle of your organization, your middle managers are your heart. They're your operations. If you're trying to get to scale and operationalize AI, they need to be on board with you and understand it. They are the ones who lead all the staff, manage all the people, do all the things. They are the core. So what we've been doing is first starting off with, in a non-patronizing way, how do you demystify what AI is, data science. They've been called literacy courses. I stopped using that. People thought we were calling people illiterate. So we stopped. We had some lessons learned there. But demystifying what it is in terms of context for their organization. So running sessions of what it means and how do you do that? And then the next step. So what's the next step? How do you identify what are the right analytic opportunities, AI opportunities, data science opportunities, and how do you evaluate those from an organization, mission, business perspective and a technology perspective and look at what is the right ones so that you're lowering that barrier to entry of your mid-managers and your senior managers to be able to ask the right questions. They do not need to be deep technical experts, but they do need to have the understanding of the impacts of what those technologies and things can do for their organization and against their organization. So having those understandings. So we've been doing pretty heavily and doing that internally for ourselves as well.
Questions? Up here in the front. We'll wait for the microphone real quick just because we're recording this, I believe. There we go.
There's a lot of federal agencies that are going to be building or contracting out for AI. And I was wondering I guess this is more for Kathleen or, Brian. What kind of skills is a program office and a federal agency going to need? Like what kind of AI skills of people overseeing these contracts? I mean, what would you say to somebody, say, hey, you need these types of people in your program office overseeing? Because there's going to be a ton of contracts for AI across the federal government. Mm-hmm. And how do we make sure they're doing the right thing, we're monitoring the right oversight?
Good question. So similar to what Kathleen had kind of mentioned with training in the middle of the workforce, that's also an approach that we've taken. So people who are already well-versed in program management, we're trying to add skills to them in new, more technical positions. We also take subject matter experts and we evolve them into the process so that you have people that are well-versed helping with a lot of the management side of it. But as you're aware, a lot of your subject matter experts, they're not program managers. They're very, very good at developing new tools or helping maybe with the requirements generation, but they're not as good in the actual program management side. So we see it as like a blended workforce where we're basically going to have a lot of coordination work between the two, a lot of teaming to ensure that when we put out for something that we're asking for the right things.
More questions? Up here in the front. Sorry.
Good morning. My name's Don Sheldon. I'm also NGA, Brian, so it's nice to see somebody from NGA participating. I had a question about, we've seen a kind of steady theme in data science, artificial intelligence, and this entire environment that seems to be erupting within the Department of Defense and the intel community. One of the things that we have talked about today that's really, really slow going is definition and lexicon, right? Which is really the foundation of training the middle management, contract GPMOs, figuring out what type of skills contractors need to bring to the table. And my question is, in order to accelerate that process, which is a large, DoD and US government level bureaucratic process, where would you see the bleeding edge of those definitions and those lexicon across, do you see it at the labs in academia in that partnership realm? Is it more industry and kind of corporate forward leaning like the Googles and the Amazons, or do you see it in like a professional governance and standards type organization?
I'll take the first cut at it. So it's interesting because I think from an R&D perspective, for research projects, the government's doing a good job because they've got that essentially open a statement of work, to be able to do research, right? But when it comes to that next level of trying to contract out, then that lexicon becomes important, and that's a difficult problem. You're right. You're absolutely right. And maybe bringing those experts in is one way to address that. But yeah, it's a tough problem.
So, at least from my perspective, I think it's much more on the standards part is where it matters in terms of what you're doing. But on the other part, I'll tell you, when I go to talk to people and I bring slides anymore, very rarely do I have a slide that has a definition of AI on it, because I don't know that I need that for them. So it's more about the outcomes that they're trying to achieve. So I focus more on, tell me more about the outcomes. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to stop something? Are you trying to anticipate something? Are you trying to recommend something? And I think that parts of the conversations, because we don't necessarily need there to be one definition of how things are done. And that's kind of the beauty that started with data science is, you're part artist. You're bringing from here and pulling from there and pulling all those things together. And I think that's going to be a lot of similarities. But I do think you absolutely need the open standards in terms of being able to take an algorithm from here and be able to actually use them and not have to do reintegration for every time somebody develops something, especially since a lot of your analyst core is probably going to be able to start developing some of their own scripts and some of those things. So they need to have the right foundation to be able to put those things in.
Yeah, I agree with both these statements here. So there's no nice, clean answer, because I'm a professor of AI and I could not give you a definition of AI. Nobody agrees on what exactly all is covered by it. It's more, you'll know it when you see it. But I think Kathleen makes a good point here. When you're trying to solve a problem, really, it doesn't matter what you're using, right? As long as you get the desired outcome. And so, at least I hope so. I hope we're not actually saying, well, you're only allowed to solve this with a neural network. Otherwise, we're not funding this. And that probably does happen now and then. But I think that it's better to have somebody who is broader, who can use the right technology. And so whether that's a particular type of AI, or if you want to call it computational intelligence or data science, which all have these big overlaps. So in academia, we know exactly what the underlying technologies are. They're very well defined. But this higher level, I can tell you, there's absolutely no agreement on it. Like when a federal agency comes out with a call that we respond to, the words AI, computational intelligence, data science are almost these days always used in an intermixed way. And when we're like, oh, they say they want AI, I work in data science, can I apply? And you call the program officer, like, oh yeah, that's fine too. That's all basically the same. We're like, okay, fine. So the field is evolving so rapidly. I think it's really hard to have a crisp definition that's useful at this point. So I'm going to stick with Kathleen's point. Look at what you're trying to accomplish and have somebody who can pull the right stuff together. And if you need that deeper thing, then don't use these high-level terms of AI, but go to the underlying technologies. If that's what you need to do. If you want to talk about neural networks or evolutionary computing or all these better defined concepts, you can do that. But
to clarify, we're not saying that somebody shouldn't understand what technologies were being used. Yes. Just to be clear, yes. We're not saying that purpose and value and how it should be. Yeah, absolutely.
And so if I can just explain, and I realize I don't have a mic, so I don't want to repeat this. The entire community right now is going through a split between morality and legality, mm-hmm. right? And especially in the Department of Defense, where we're talking about combat operations. Legality is incredibly important, but yes. without the appropriate lexicon, we're never going to get there. So, coming from the morality side, where high-level terms are ill-defined, mm-hmm. How do we walk the dog into applying these things where we can get over things like congressional oversight of artificial intelligence within the Department of Defense?
I see.
That's really where my question is coming from.
So do you have a definition of data science that everybody's agreed on? Because that one's been out for about 7 years. And look, I'm not trying to push back on you in that way.
Absolutely.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. If there was, that'd be awesome. Booz Allen, we take a machine learning approach to AI. So that's kind of how we sense our definition and where are we going to. But at the broadest sense, it's to replace human intelligence. Okay? All right, now what does that get us? And so I agree that there's a common lexicon. That's where I said I think it's some parts of the standards and how certain technologies are applied. But I think we focused too heavy on what is the definition versus what we're actually trying to do with it.
So I see the point. Like if you have a congressional rule that says, if you're using AI, this is the set of rules you're following, and your people come to you and say, okay, we're using this algorithm. Is that considered AI for that legal definition, or we're going to have to report this? And you're like, no idea, because I think it's going to be up to government probably, or a standards body like NIST, to probably set a thing, and it's going to be wrong, and it's going to be updated all the time, and people are going to fight over it, and it might be the least bad thing you can do for this particular purpose, at least for a while.
I'm going to push a little bit on your whole definition discussion because I have an undergrad in mathematics, so I understand kind of like the logic base, but now I do policy work. So I'm going to push on the fact that it's actual AI. So basic logical decision making is what you're writing code to do. You're writing code as far as AI, quote unquote, to make decisions based upon logic. It's a logic tree. That's all it is. And AI would be writing code for itself, correct? Saying that, hey, we're going to write code to make a PowerPoint. But I think what he's trying to get at, and what most people are trying to understand, is, are we now just basically in the logic coding stage, or are we in a stage to where you have a computer program that can write code for itself and solve problems that you don't know exist?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah. We
So-
can certainly go.
I'll try a different stance on it, because I don't think we're disagreeing with either of what you guys are saying. Would, in an ideal world, yes, would love it. I mean, that would make it so much easier to write a proposal. God, to be like, I gotcha, But what it's at right now is that's just been in a world that we've had to live in probably the last 7-8 years of being really ill-defined. And so, yes, there are, you're talking about, can the code actually train itself now? Is it starting to train itself? Yeah, in some cases. In large, massive cases, no. It depends on where it's at, what it's being used for. So there's that part that's hard. So I, too, have the morality side of it, of how are we understanding it? And I think that's where more research being driven into the explainable AI and what is more about the audit trail. And so that's what I mean in terms of what is the outcome that you're trying to get to, and then being able to look and have some sort of confidence level. So in traditional Intel analyst world, it was the analyst confidence level. And you had kind of mechanisms that would describe how you got there. So as a human, I would describe how I got to that percentage of confidence. That type of things built into AI. So I think some of the policy aspects needs to be able to do that full audit trail and show through it, and that you can't be able to use it unless you can show those things, the pedigree, the adversarial aspects of it.
All right, folks, we are at 9:45 exactly. So one, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Remind you, fill out those surveys on your table. Big thank you, Insa, Esri, for putting this panel together. I'm sure our panelists, some of them will be around. And please join me in thanking our panelists.